Now the real miracle is that so far the first 9 steps have never turned against me as alcohol did. I've never been placed in a jailhouse because of the first 9 steps. Never been drug into a divorce court because of the first 9 steps. Never vomited. Damn near did a time or two, but never really vomited because of the first 9 steps. They give me everything alcohol ever gave me, good, with none of the bad. Now if you read those steps, you'll notice that all of them deal with the mind. None of them deal with the body. Surely if we've received those 9 steps in our life, then we have become different people. Surely we've undergone one hell of a personality change by the time we receive these promises. Actually, we've probably undergone a personality change sufficient to recover from the disease of alcoholism right here. But if we aren't careful, we'll stop. And if we stop, we're going to be in trouble. There is another spiritual axiom which is always true anywhere in the universe. Nothing ever stays the same. Everything in our universe is growing or dying, progressing or regressing, going forward or going back. And if we could hold on to these first 9 steps, they would be so great. And if these promises could stay in our life exactly as they are, they would be so great we would never need anything else. But if we stop, we'll start sliding back. Everything in the universe is constantly changing. I sit here and I look at a beautiful tree out that window. And that tree grows and grows and grows, and every day it becomes more beautiful. Until one day it quits growing. And then it begins to die. And it eventually reverts back to where it came from. The human body is one of the most miraculous things that God ever made. And it grows and it grows and it grows till it gets to be about 19 years old. And then it quits growing. And the day it quits growing, it begins to die, and eventually it returns to where it came from also. Now, all universal laws apply to everything. The human personality can grow and grow and grow until it becomes a beautiful thing. But if it stops, then it will start to regress also. Twice, Bill has mentioned in this book about a 4th dimension of existence. Once in his story, once in chapter 2. We've looked at the normal 3. We've looked at the spirit and the mind and the physical, sociological, and we straightened that up in the first 9 steps. But there is another dimension that most human beings will never have the opportunity to experience because they don't have the tools to experience it. Some people will call steps 10, 11, and 12 maintenance steps. We don't believe that's true. Because if nothing stays the same, you cannot maintain. To maintain means to keep as is. It's really a misnomer. If we don't continue to grow spiritually, we will simply begin to regress. And we start having trouble with people. Then with our mind, and then with God, and we end up drunk all over again. Let's look at the last 3 steps for a few minutes. Not as maintenance steps, but as growth steps to put us into a different dimension of existence. On page 84, this thought brings us to step 10.
Which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to right any mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commit the way of living as we clean up the past. We have entered the world of spirit.
We've had a spiritual experience. We've entered the world of the spirit.
Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness.
Not to stay where we are, but to grow in understanding and effectiveness.
This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear.
What step did we use to look at those things in the first place? Anybody remember? Step 4, okay.
When they crop up, we ask God at once to remove them.
And what steps did we use for that? 7 and 8.
6 and 7.
Excuse me, 6 and 7.
We discuss them with someone immediately.
And what step was that? 5.
And we make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone.
And what steps were those? 8 and 9, okay.
Okay. So according to the big book, the text, step 10 is a continuous working of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I also remember when we went through those steps, this is where all the personality change came from, was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. We didn't get any personality change from 1, 2, and 3. We got personality change from the action steps. So step 10 is a continuous practicing of those action steps. And if we continue to practice those action steps, we would continue to get change. You know, as we took step 4 each day, and 5, we would learn more and more about ourselves. We would see more character effects. And as we asked God to remove them, they would become less and less. Now, if we made amends to other people each day, our relationship with people would grow each day. So it would be totally impossible to practice step 10 and remain the same. You would have to grow. Now, step 4, when we took the inventory, it set us up for this. In step 4, we listed in the first column and the second column our resentments and our fears and those things. And then in the third column, we listed which part of self was involved and which character defect was affected. So that gives us the information to work step 10. Now, when something comes up in my life every day, and usually it is a resentment or a fear or some guilt and remorse for something that I had done to another person, when I feel something that's bothering me, I look to see what it is. Now, I don't have to write it down anymore. I can look at it and tell if it's a resentment. If it's a resentment, I can say, Joe, which part of self is threatened here now? And I can spot it right away because I learned this in step 4. And it would be the same thing. It would be my old self-esteem been threatened most of the time. And I can spot it right away. And then I can look over in column 4 and I can see which character defect is involved. And as soon as I see that, you know, I can ask God to remove it. And if I hurt anybody, I can make amends. I can get over that in 15 minutes. I can just work that way out. I can process those things out as they come up each day. Now, step 4 prepared me to do that. And I can do this throughout the day. Anything that comes up, when I have a problem, I don't have to wait all day. You know, most people, they done got some misnomers around the fellowship about step 10. And what has happened with step 10, with our steps, period? What has happened with our steps? We got the 12 steps, and 12 steps were written and put in the big book when the big book was written. Now, what happened after a while, a few years, somebody got the idea of putting them on little cards. That's great. Somebody else got the idea of putting them up, hanging them up in our club rooms, and that's good, in our meeting rooms. That's nice. But we didn't, you know, every time we do something, there's nothing wrong with that, but we don't know what people will do with that. Now, what has happened, you people come in and they get ready to take the steps. They won't read them out of the book. They read them off the wall. They go read that step off the wall, and they interpret it, what it does it mean. They make their own interpretation of it and apply it to themselves, and they say it don't work. Now, you can't take the steps off the wall. The big book is the only book that gives us instructions for taking the steps. If we take them out of the book, they mean altogether different. Usually when we take them off the wall, we think step 10 means just before you go to bed, if you hurt anybody, just ask for forgiveness and go to bed. That's step 10 off the wall. Now, Charlie and I laugh about that. At our age, particularly at my age, I don't need a step to go to bed with. I don't get in trouble in bed. I need a walking around step. You know, that's what I need. Step 10 is a walking around step. It ain't no going to bed step, you know. We don't hurt people and get in trouble sleep, you know. It's when we're walking around, we're dangerous as hell.
I always want to tell him, speak for yourself about that going to bed deal. It really doesn't make any sense for me to get fouled up at 9 o'clock in the morning and then stay fouled up the rest of the day and wait till I go to bed at night to do something about it. Because if I'm fouled up at 9 o'clock, if I don't straighten that out by 10 o'clock, something else has come up. By 11 o'clock, something else has come up. By nighttime, I'm an absolute raving maniac. I tell you what I can do. I can watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. The instant it crops up, I can stop and I say, okay, Charlie, what part of self is threatened? I can't feel those feelings unless there's a threat to one of my basic instincts alive. Then I can say which character defect has come to the surface. It's got to be selfishness, dishonesty, self-seeking, frightened, inconsiderate. I can spot it just like that. I learned how to do that in step 4. I can say, God, you know I don't want to be this way. Please take this away from me. I can discuss it with another human being. I can make amends quickly, and it can be done with it in 10 or 15 minutes. And the rest of the day is okay. I've wasted all the time I want to waste in resentment, fear, worry, depression, and the like. I love to feel good, and I've got the tools to do that with. I would defy anybody in this room to work step 10 the way the book says to work it and stay the way you are. You cannot do that. As you watch for these things, as you ask God to take them away, you learn more and more about yourself. As you discuss them with another human being, you learn more about yourself. As you make amends quickly, your relationship with other people become better. And you've got to grow through the proper use of step 10. Now be careful, because again, if you accept this in your life, then what you're really accepting is responsibility for the way you feel. See, knowing this today, I no longer have the luxury of blaming it on other people. They can't make me mad unless I let them do it. They can't get me afraid and all screwed up unless I let them do it. I can't hurt anybody else unless I do that on purpose, because now I know how to handle this. Always before, I had to react to those people automatically. Today, I don't have to. And what I'm really saying to myself today is, I am responsible for the way I feel. I am responsible for what I do. I am responsible for what I think. I no longer have the luxury of blaming it on other people. Now, let's face it. Some days I like to be screwed up. Because if I'm real mad, I can romp and stomp and raise hell, and that gives me a comfortable feeling of superiority over other people. Someday I like to be afraid, because I can use fear to rationalize doing something I really shouldn't be doing. Or I can use it to rationalize not doing something I ought to do. But I no longer have the luxury of doing that and enjoying it like I used to. It's not near as much fun now, because now I know what the hell I'm doing when I do it. And it's not near as much fun as it used to be. Step 10 is a definite growth step. You and I are the luckiest people in the world. We have a way to live better than most people have ever lived before, than most people are ever going to live that come after us. Most people do not have these tools. They're sick. They're going to go to the grave sick. We don't have to do that. We can become whatever we want to become through the daily use of step 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, over and over and over and over for the rest of our lives, and we gradually become better and better and better. Let's look at another set of promises after step 10. We hear always about those on 83 and 84. We never hear about those on 84 and 85. Let's look at a new set of promises after we practice step 10 on the bottom of page 84.
Okay, we have 12 more promises that come after step 10. We always talk about the 12 that come after step 9, but very seldom do we talk about the 12 that come after step 10. And you know, we looked at the promises that came after step 5. There were 8 of them. And then between page 75 and 85, there are, 32 promises there. These are promises that we were looking for. We have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. By this time, sanity will have returned. Remember in step 2 when we said, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity? Remember that said that we were sane in all areas except one area? We had our little alcohol piece missing. Now that it has been returned, let's see how we look toward alcohol. We will be seldom interested in liquor. If tempted, we will call from it like a hot flame. We will react sanely and normally. And we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us when any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are neither fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position when neutrality is safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us, and we're neither cocky nor we're afraid. This is our experience. This is how we react so long as we keep in a fit spiritual condition.
This is the double miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. You remember how back on page 45 we read a statement which said the main object of this book is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself which will solve your problem. Now, somewhere between page 45 and page 85, I woke up one morning and I said, Charlie, there's something strange in your life. I said, what's that? I said, you don't want to take a drink. I said, how long's it been since you wanted to take a drink? And I couldn't remember. Somewhere in the process of these steps between page 45 and 85, God reached into my mind and He plucked out the obsession to drink. I have never believed the lie since that time. All I did was work the steps and found the power, and the power removed the obsession to drink. Now, God don't leave a hole in my head. He'll have to replace that with something else, and He can only replace it with the opposite. And today my mind is obsessed with the idea of staying sober. You see, an obsession is an idea that overcomes all ideas. If you're obsessed with the truth, then you're going to act on the truth. And my mind is obsessed with the idea that I can no longer drink satisfactorily. And if I'll spend half of the time staying sober that I used to spend trying to drink, hell, I'm probably going to be able to stay sober. God, drinking is hard work. Jesus Christ, you give it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You give it everything you got. You give it your self-respect. You give it your job. You give it your money. You give it your family. You give it everything you got. If I would just give half of that to God, I probably would end up staying sober. You know, the great fallacy with people like us is we want to give God the drinking. Yeah, God, you take this alcohol. But don't fool with our sex life. Stay out of our job. We'll make our money. You know, God don't play those kind of games. God wants us all. He don't even drink. He don't want just our alcohol. He wants the whole ball of wax. And if we'll spend half as much time giving things to God as we did to alcohol, we're probably going to stay sober. It's easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. Now there's maintenance one day at a time. We can maintain this building we're in one day at a time, but sooner or later this sucker's going to fall down. You know, you can't maintain indefinitely. How can I best serve Thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this wish. It is the proper use of the will. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction, not suggestion, from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we've carefully followed directions, not suggestion, we've begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God-conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. But we must go further, and that means more action.